Throughout the history of gaming, copycatting off the back of whatever is already popular has been the standard, starting with 99% of the first generation of consoles being nothing more than Pong rip-offs. You had the Pac-Man Maze Craze days, you got the Space Invader shooty days, platformers in the 90s, first-person shooters in the noughties. Can anyone suggest an open-world adventure game? I just don't seem to have any to choose from. All it takes is just one game to change up the entire industry. And today we'll be looking at some of the worst offenders within the world of... 1999's Crazy Taxi. Sorry, there is only one way to say that.
Crazy Taxi!
Haha, yes. One of the most iconic video games ever released on Sega's extra iconic Dreamcast, a game I never shut up about. In fact, if I had £1 for every time I mentioned it, I'd have something like,
class S license.
Haha, yes. Either way, this fantastic taxi 'em up is bloody awesome, and it is for good reason the go-to game that people think of when they talk about taxi-based video games. Even though it wasn't the first. I mean, how far do you want to go back? Mars Taxi, which was released in 1997, was more like a cross between a typical taxi sim and Lunar Lander. Quarantine, also known as Hard Rock Cab, and Death Throttle came out on various systems between 1994 and 1996 and is a lot closer to Crazy Taxi, albeit in a first-person mode with a lot more gore added, similar to Carmageddon, although this did come out first. And then you got Data East, who was probably the closest with their game Yellow Cab, aka Kamikaze Cabby from 1984, which goes for a top-down viewpoint this time and plays exactly like Crazy Taxi. In fact, just like Crazy Taxi, you drive around picking up passengers and dropping them off at their destination. Just like Crazy Taxi, you need to do this as quick as you can, and you get tipped accordingly based on how you get to said destination. Like Crazy Taxi, your directions are presented to you with arrows, although in a top-down viewpoint, this map is significantly easier to navigate, being that it's mostly presented in blocks like a typical major American city. But unlike Crazy Taxi, you have fuel, which not only depletes over time, as you would expect, but also goes down the more cars and buildings that you collide with, which honestly is a pretty decent way to include all of the elements of Crazy Taxi, but only 15 years before that game came out. And also, 1984, when this game came out, that was also the year that The Offspring were formed. Technically not relevant, but still worth bringing up. The only game that I could find that was similar that came before all of this was Taxi for the ZX Spectrum, which came out in 1983. I'm not going to spend too long on this one, as it's impossibly hard to control, constantly going round the world's biggest roundabout, picking up passengers and hoping to deliver them to their destination whilst keeping your eye on your fuel gauge and trying not to touch anything else, because if you do, you explode. And that's as far back as I could find in regards to taxi-based video games. If you guys know of any others, please let me know down in the comments section. Either way, the mundane job of running your own taxi cab was most definitely perfected in 1999 when Crazy Taxi hit the arcades, and more so on the Dreamcast, where gamers could put some real time and effort into this addictive "we should have taken the train 'em up." The idea behind Crazy Taxi may sound boring, but then again, so does your average driving game on paper. Thankfully, this game perfected the gameplay style with its mini games that showed you how to do crazy drifts, crazy stops, crazy dashes, and crazy jumps. If you mastered these maneuvers, then you know how important they were to the gameplay. Blend all of this in with that all-important Sega charm that helped it become the legendary game we all know and love today, and you have a bona fide classic on your hands. Like many classic arcade games, the first entry was pure perfection. And yes, even though some of those sequels did improve upon that somewhat, everyone just wanted to go back to the original. All they wanted was the original Crazy Taxi. And besides porting that original to different systems and making a mini compilation of sorts for the PSP, there really wasn't much else that you could do with this formula. Plus, let's not kid ourselves, the average AAA gamer in this day and age wants nothing more than multi-million-dollar companies to work thousands of game devs to the bone so that they can release a game that's got 100 hours plus worth of gameplay attached to make it feel like they've got their money's worth in a full-priced game, leaving one-off arcade gimmicks like Crazy Taxi, which used to be a full-price thing, nothing more than a budget title by today's standards. Which is why, if you ask me, among other things, is why SEGA stopped making them. Thankfully, that didn't stop others from replicating this pretty basic formula. Simpsons Road Rage is the most obvious and decent one that I'm going to fly by pretty quickly. A more than worthy, obviously super well known full-on rip-off of Crazy Taxi, just with Simpsons characters instead of Green Day tribute rejects. If you can't beat them, join them. The Simpsons have tried multiple times to piggyback off the back of many a popular game genre with the most mixed output you could possibly imagine, but Road Rage, well, that was most definitely a hit and run. Personally, even though the game is essentially the same, I do want to give props to the writing and the fact that the game has missions. That's a nice touch. But again, everybody knows this. It's all old news. Everybody knows that SEGA took the publisher of Road Rage to court over this. Again, it's old news. What's less well known, however, is in 2002, Hey Arnold got a movie. Yes, stay with me. This is completely relevant. Because what's even less well known than that is that that movie had a video game adaptation. And no, I'm not talking about Hey Arnold the movie, the game. I'm talking about Hey Arnold the movie, Runaway Bus. You see, in that movie, you had a scene where the bus driver gets knocked out and Arnold has to take the wheel, and for whatever reason, that was enough material to allow them to turn it into a Crazy Taxi ripoff. The end result was Runaway Bus, a free game for 30 minutes unless you had a Nick Arcade pass, which was apparently $8 a month, or hang on, what's that? $20 straight up? Thankfully, I got all the footage I needed in 10 minutes. Because, I mean, look at it. It's Crazy Taxi, but with a bus. Heck, it even gives you the option to play in crazy mode. Honestly, it plays as it should. It doesn't have any funky maneuvers like the Dreamcast original to master. Apparently, if you hold the spacebar, you can do power slides, but it just made the game harder to control. The world is tiny, it isn't populated, the soundtrack is the same 15 seconds on loop. You only have this one level. It really is as basic as you can possibly get. But hey, it's a clone, so you gotta mention it, unfortunately. Just like I gotta mention that there's also a game called Noddy Taxi, created by Black Sheep Studios, who also worked on The Crew for iOS. I gotta be honest here, guys. I didn't play this one. It only came out in Germany and France, and, well, I kinda don't think I'm the right demographic here. I'm only bringing it up because you need to taxi lazy-ass Noddy D-list characters around at 0.03 miles per hour, which is the complete opposite for the game Smashing Drive. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, this shouldn't be on the list either. But one, people keep comparing this game to Crazy Taxi, even though it has nothing to do with it besides it being crazy and it involves you driving a taxi. And two, I absolutely adore this game. No, seriously, ever since I randomly stumbled upon this during the life of the original Xbox, I have loved it. Okay, you know, love is a bit of a strong word, but there's something incredibly charming about just how terribly bad this game is. Anyone out there got a game that they love even though they know that deep down it is utter rubbish? Well, this is that game for me. The graphics are pretty atrocious, the controls are not much better, but still get past that, and if you are anything like me, you'll become obsessed with trying to work out how to get to the end of each race by finding all of the secret passageways that in a lot of instances make absolutely no sense. Again, besides the fact that you drive a taxi in this game, there really isn't that many similarities between this and the original Crazy Taxi. It is in fact a lot closer to 18-Wheeler Pro Trucker, only terrible, and that's kind of why I love it. Also, the music. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2,
your diapers. Get your guts growling.
I want to go all angry video game nerdy on its arse and tell you how terrible it is, but at the same time, I can't help but feel like this may be someone's first attempt at Fruity Loops or something. Anyone have that mate who's in a band and makes you listen to their terrible music, and you don't have the heart to tell them that they're about as talented as a Daphne and Celeste tribute band? Well, this sounds like that.
You're cause your enemy. Step upon the yellow sun. Take me through the crowded streets and smash this town. And the city alone.
Now, be nice. For me at least, it's the sort of terrible that you end up loving. Regardless, 11 years into my YouTube channel, I've finally found a way to talk about this polished turd that has nothing to do with Crazy Taxi except for the fact that it's crazy and you drive a taxi. Now, will you all please stop comparing it to Crazy Taxi like I just did? Right. Let's move on. London Taxi Rush is a pretty close call to the Crazy Taxi formula, albeit with far more questionable characters driving around London in one of those black cabs that we're all known for, my good sir, what? Once again, the city is tiny. It isn't that populated, although it does have a big red double-decker bus, because you know, it's London, and it also has several iconic landmarks too, like the London Eye, Big Ben, and Buckingham Palace. The only issue is that it's absolutely no fun to play whatsoever. The controls are stupidly stupid. Sometimes they let you turn almost a full 360 pretty much on the spot, but then other times you can barely turn left or right at all. Sometimes they give you plenty of time, and other times you got no time at all. And finally, your know-it-all customers who will jump out of the London cab, even if you are directly outside their desired destination, will not even get back in the cars if it's not clean enough. Yeah, you need to keep on top of washing your car in this one too. Now, of course, this is budget gaming at its absolute worst. It offers nothing new to the Crazy Taxi formula. However, if you want a game that's even worse than this, in this weird little niche that we're looking into, then look no further than Super Taxi Driver. An overly bland and overly cheap taxi driving sim that was virtually impossible to get running. Honestly, I wasn't even going to bring this one up because it offers absolutely nothing new when compared to the previously talked about rip-offs. So, why am I? Well, that would be due to the box art that was eventually re-released to box art that looked like this. They're not even trying anymore. Thankfully, the company made back the 20 quid they spent on the game and was able to make a sequel in 2006. And this one isn't as bad. I mean, it's not great. They did at least try and add a story element, even if that story ends up with make X amount of money in 5 minutes. Still, it's nice to think about what they could be adding into an eventual next official Crazy Taxi title. We may even get Crazy Taxi mixed with Destruction Derby, just like in this game. Overall, it's not a terrible game, all things considered. Well, no, actually, it is pretty bad, but looking back at all of the crap we've been checking out today, at the very least, it is trying to add something new. Oh, hang about. Apparently my career is over. Thank God for that. Right, let's try something completely different.
If you ride in my truck, bitch, you gonna fuck. If you ride in my truck, bitch, you gonna fuck. If you ride in my truck.
Crazy Shuttle is a free newsground game that takes the Crazy Taxi formula onto a 2D plane. Literally, you just go left and right, honking your horn to invite them in your truck before taking them to the destination, killing everyone in your path. This is actually awesome. I'm not sure how you would ever turn something like this into a full-fledged game. Maybe adding it in as a mini-game in a title such as WarioWare. Either way, I just love that this exists. Typing the word taxi into Steam comes back with hundreds of results, and one of those results is Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom, which is a mashup love letter not only to Crazy Taxi on some levels, but more so Banjo and Kazooie, as it's more of a collectathon platformer really than anything else. It's an odd mix, but one that fully seems to be loved by those that hark back to those genres. Cyber Taxi is yet another homage to that hard rock cab game that we mentioned earlier. And Taxi Life, a city driving simulator, is a far more realistic taxi driving simulator, meaning that there is no craziness at all. It's just slowly drive around a decent chunk of Barcelona, pick people up and drop people off. Now, to be fair, I'm definitely not the target audience for a game that looks like this. It does look the business, and I will admit, I was intrigued, but for me, once you've tried it and gone, oh, well that's what it's like, you never really want to go back and play it again, or at least I don't. Mile High Taxi is a Crazy Taxi meets Fifth Element game, and as quality as that sounds, it's painfully hard to control and navigate. Look, it's not the worst game ever, and there's no doubt that the guy who made it is a huge Crazy Taxi fan, as several characters look like they've been ripped directly from that game. Heck, even the camera zooms around just like the SEGA original. And to be fair to Mile High, after a short while you do start to understand the strange way you control your cab in this game. But it's still always taking away from the OG experience when you find yourself slowly maneuvering up and down to reach a certain level. Taxi Chaos is probably the one most people go to when trying to get their non-Simpsons injected Crazy Taxi fix. And at first glance it does look nice, a tad too smooth and sim-like for me, but hey, that's fine. Unfortunately, the gameplay itself seems incredibly backwards. The car is stupidly easy to move about, however the game features no drift maneuvers whatsoever. But one thing it does include is a boost. Holding down L2 and R2 at the same time revs up your engine, allowing you to slowly boost off for a short while, which isn't the worst way to start your journey, but makes absolutely no sense doing so mid-journey, as you need to stop your cab in order to make it work. Everything else is just super bland. This game had great potential, but the reality is that it becomes incredibly mundane and boring after you have delivered your first customer, leaving just one game that I want to talk about. And yes, I have saved the absolute best for last. And when I say best, what I actually mean is Stellar Stone, most well known for releasing one of the absolute worst games of all time with big rigs over the road racing, actually started their studio's journey with a Crazy Taxi ripoff known as Taxi Racer. And yes, considering this game came in a good couple of years before big rigs, you're not going to be surprised to hear that it's actually worse. Now, I've been complaining about how previous games never got the controls down. Sometimes they controlled fine, but they didn't offer anything new that made you constantly want to keep going like the original did. In a lot of cases, the driving was just simply boring. However, Taxi Racer is different in that the car doesn't control how you would expect in any way, shape or form. When you go forward, the car goes forward and picks up speed, but it never stops picking up speed. You just keep going and going until you hit a wall. Oh, and if you dare try the turn, well, you basically need to stop for that to work at all. Meaning that this game is just practically unplayable before you've even picked up a passenger in the first place. Eventually you smash your way towards your first client and you drop them off. You don't actually get anything for your efforts, of course, you just pick up and you drop off. And thankfully for you, they all want to go to the same 3 or 4 shops because that's all there is on offer here. I don't know, perhaps the world of Taxi Racer is filled with nothing but gambling addicts who are willing to risk their life to get one step closer to a coral betting shop and taste that sweet, sweet gambling nectar.
If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com because getting help is your best bet.
At the end of the day, nothing compares to Crazy Taxi, a singular game that was simply just lightning in a bottle. The Offspring music, the erratic announcer, the noughties pop-punk look, the inconsistent but addictive driving mechanics, the product placement, everything just blended together to make the best arcade-like taxi game ever released. And if this video has taught us anything, is that if you want more Crazy Taxi, then you've really only got the sequels to mess about with. and The Simpsons. Lesser known games such as Jambo Safari, which requires you to lasso helpless African animals, desperately trying to stay close enough without having to pull too hard on your rope before shooting a net at just the right time, may seem different and a little mean, and I mean it is. But I would bet my bottom dollar that you will most definitely like this game if you like Crazy Taxi. I actually remember hearing about this and then getting a 1-hour bus journey to my nearest seaside town in order to play it. It's actually a lot of fun. Emergency Call Ambulance is also worth checking out. A similar premise to Crazy Taxi in that you drive injured patients in an ambulance to the hospital before they, well, die, but again, this feels more like an 18-wheeler type game, which I gotta admit, I also have a soft spot for. Maybe I'll do a complete history on that series soon enough too. And finally, there's Harley Davidson and LA Riders, but as fun as that is, we're getting further and further away from the style of Crazy Taxi. Fingers crossed for when SEGA come back with the next entry in the series. As stated, in this day and age, more needs to be added to make a game feel worthy of being a full-price game, which I'm guessing SEGA will want to charge people with Crazy Taxi 4, and the trailer already shows multiplayer, open world elements, and even some cops and robbers style gameplay too, which personally I'm all for. Add whatever you need to this next Crazy Taxi game, just as long as it has that original mode included as well, and it feels like Crazy Taxi. Oh, and also, if you don't add Offspring to Crazy Taxi 4, you're gonna have a bad time.
Hey there guys, thanks for checking out the video. This is the part of the video I give a massive shout out to all of my patrons, all of my YouTube members, all of those people that you see at the bottom of the screen, with an extra big shout out going to Boots and Pup, The Sneaky Ferret, Vitas Varnes, James, The Action Saxon, Jay is Manchild, Mike Fallon, Nicholas Bertner, Chev Matic, Jabba Al Aiden, Richard Aldajik, Shadow Dragon, Dina, Yelled Hamburglar, Jeff Mianowski, Bram Perez, Conrad Constantine, Andrew Dalton, Retro to Next Gen, aka Lou, Paul Float, Ryan Burford, JM, Casey Samples, Derek Kuda, Akatimo84, Matt Jackson, Ian Quell, Arista, Dina81, Mind of the Unsane, and Vike Echo. Thank you guys so much for your support. This particular video right here was not supposed to be a long one. It ended up being a bit longer than I expected because there really are so many Crazy Taxi rip-offs. I'm working on a much bigger video behind the scenes in between these. All about, I don't want to go too much into it. It's about that system that everyone keeps asking me about. Kick scammers are based on that system that everyone is asking me about. So yeah, it's coming. It is coming, but more information is coming out. So I'm waiting for the right time to drop it and just stopped collecting information and get on with the video. So look, hey, if you want to find out more about that video as and when it happens, and you know, information along the way, then please consider becoming a Patreon or YouTube member like all of these people you see down here. And yeah, look, until next time guys, thanks so much for your support, and hopefully I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.